for a long time, and I want to tell you a funny story along those lines. I've been doing music for the majority of my life. Now I'm 42, and I kind of turned into a transient when I was around 18. My mama got me a guitar on my 17th birthday. Well, fast forward to ending up having the opportunity to cut at Norman Petty. I'd made records with this guy from Southern Georgia who was preaching the gospel of Norman Petty and his impact on the music business when we were cutting 2 records down there a few years back. One was a record called Welcome to Hard Times, immediately followed up by this record titled Music City, USA. And this Mark Neal fella, he's eccentric to say the least, but he's dedicated to the music, and he believes in preserving the legacy of a lot of the people that kind of built the first generation of these studios that have the kind of the rock and roll mainstream impact on the American public that we all care so much for, and all the different people that make up the tapestry of our music in the United States. And anyway, I knew about the place about 10 years, and I've been trying to get into the studio, and it just looked like it wasn't going to happen. And I know Kenneth, the old boy that Norman and V had trusted the future of the place to, he was really trying to, I think, just make sure that it stayed intact. And for that reason, I think that's why it didn't maybe have the high traffic of places like Sun Studios in Memphis, Electric Lakeland in New York, Sunset Studio where Shooter's based out of, in Hollywood. You've got New Orleans, Chicago, Kansas City, all these places that are really important. This one was so appealing to me because, as a Texan, and I think New Mexicans are in kind of the same boat when it comes to the music or the entertainment business or finance industry or anything. They always look at us as behind and provincial, and you've got to go to these metropolis kind of capitals to get in, or even in Texas, you got to go to Dallas to make money or whatever, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. But this place really was special to me because it's in a region that I can identify with feeling like an outsider in places like Nashville and New York and LA and those places. Just simply because, the culture that I was raised in Texas and my love for New Mexico, just folks don't know a whole lot about that necessarily in those places, or, maybe don't appreciate it fully. I'm rambling on here a little bit, but in January, out of nowhere, this guy from Texas who has a barbecue joint in London, he just emailed the studio out of the blue. A guy named Texas Joe Walters from Corpus Christi, Texas. And he hit me up, he said, "Man, you mind me giving him one more try? I'm the king of the cold email." I said, "Yeah, man, what the heck, the ship had sailed. I made my peace with it." 3 days later, Ron Skinner, that was working over there, responded and said, "Yeah, we would love to have Shooter Jennings and his family's, legacy connected to the town and the area, and bring old Charley Crockett with you, I guess." And we made the record 2 months later, and Jared, Christopher, and I wanted to go get a picture in the rail yard, and I thought it was funny that I was asking permission to get into the rail yard, because the first time I ever went into that rail yard, I was riding on one of them stack trains about 20 years ago. And that was how I started to get to know the region, was hitchhiking up to Taos or up into Colorado and passing through it. Later on, I would end up, playing on the Texas and Southwest circuit. Toured it in a 2-door Dodge Avenger, moved up to a van, then to a bus and a trailer, now a whole fleet. And I felt more comfortable making a record here in Clovis than any place that I ever have. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I like the region, I like the culture. New Mexico to me is such a special place because it doesn't feel entirely taken over by modern mass consumer culture necessarily. There's a vibrancy and a uniqueness and a magic to New Mexico that I've always felt drawn to. And also walking my path in the music business, I found myself more and more looking at the life and times of Waylon Jennings, mostly just because of the way that he has a David and Goliath story. and somebody that maybe not everybody realizes these days, but he stood up for and carved a lane for artistic integrity, the right to self-determination as an artist in the music business that, especially out of the Nashville machine that he had found himself in, didn't exist at the time. And you know, it's a different time. Mark Twain said, history rhymes, it doesn't repeat. But I have felt myself dealing with similar forces, say 50 years later. And one of the first guys I ever opened up for when I got off the street and started touring on the old Hank Williams circuit was Shooter Jennings. And at the time, I didn't know he was producing records. He's gotten into it more and more. He's a great artist. He is a great writer. He's a great performer. He's a great producer, and an even better friend than that. And I'm so lucky that I was able to make this record here with him. And I never thought y'all would give me a day. And I know y'all are thanking me for all the stuff that we're doing for y'all and all that, but really it's the other way around. I remember Shooter and I were sitting in that studio writing these songs late one night, and you could really feel the ghosts in there because that studio hadn't been run over by, say, you know, decades of thousands and thousands of artists coming through it. Though I believe it deserves that kind of attention, somewhat selfishly, I wanted to be in there with that energy because I knew that I could feel them still walking around. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, you dig 6 feet in there and you find Waylon and Buddy Holly, who I think changed American music as drastically as Elvis or Chuck Berry or Prince or anyone. I believe that. I'm sure of it. And had he lived even as long as Elvis did, it would be more obvious today, and we wouldn't necessarily be having to unearth this. Roy Orbison, Bobby Fuller. But what I noticed being there on the premises, if you dig down 30 feet, you find hundreds of artists of an ethnic, very diverse background that represents our region of Texas and New Mexico and the Southwest and the desert on both sides of the border, a few sides of the border, and I'm excited for, similar to where I'm from in South Texas, through the attention that we might be able to bring to it right now is people discovering you know, the rich history and a lot of voices here that make Clovis, I think, singular in the world. And I'm gonna step off this podium and cry a little bit now.
Charley Crockett, thank you for being here, and have a good show tonight.
I appreciate that. Put that in my pocket.